Hello, and welcome to Morning Motivation. I'm your host, Dakiana Jackson, small business marketing coach and founder of Inspired Marketing, Inc. Let's talk about boundaries and how easy it is for you to let others overstep them. Here's an example. Say you have a new small business client you're managing social media for. Your core services include writing brand content, creating graphics, and then posting them to reach the engagement goals you and your client set together. On a call, they ask if you know someone who could help with bookkeeping for a few months. Their current bookkeeper needs to take leave and they need help immediately. The most appropriate answer? Okay, I'll check my network and let you know. But as a giver who is not good at setting healthy boundaries, that's not what you say. Instead, you volunteer yourself. You did take some accounting classes in college and your client really needs the help. The extra money will be good too. Later on, a family member mentions in passing they need to go to an appointment twice a week and they don't have any transportation. They didn't directly ask you. They didn't even ask you if you knew someone. But again, you volunteer yourself. You do work from home and you can schedule meetings around it. It should be fine. The next thing you know, you're a social media managing bookkeeping taxi service. That is not what your core business is. That is not your purpose. I made this example up, but how many times have you found yourself working so outside of your purpose you don't even remember how you got there? Now, even when we're good at setting boundaries with clients, that does not always cross over into our business and the projects that we want to do for ourselves. We start out with the best intentions. We're going to create a plan to start, grow, or maintain our business, and then we're going to execute it with excellence. And it starts off pretty well, and then comes a friend who knows you're working from home, and they need you right now, and probably the next few days too. And if you still have a traditional 9 to 5 job, that's the time when your boss decides to assign you 2 new projects on Friday that have to be completed by Monday morning. Next thing you know, your friend feels better and your boss is extremely happy with the work you've done. But your business, it's barely moving forward and it's definitely not moving at the pace you planned. So, what can you do about it? Get used to setting boundaries and sticking to them. Again, get used to setting boundaries, and the most important part, sticking to them. If you believe your career is tied to your purpose and should be something fulfilling, you probably classify yourself as a giver. Being willing and able to help is a good trait to have, but you have to be careful, or you may find yourself doing too much, or even worse, being taken advantage of. What does doing too much look like? Well, it looks like taking on projects not in your core services, like with that social media term bookkeeper example I just gave you. But it can also look like you wanting success for someone more than they want it for themselves. And while you may see positive short-term results, it is detrimental at the end. How many of your clients weren't served because you were too busy being distracted by projects you shouldn't have even taken in the first place? You were trying to save someone else and ended up falling off the cliff yourself. Now, part of my giving used to be setting my work aside to make sure a friend's project didn't fail. Now, I love seeing other people succeed, but I have learned to guide rather than take over. And that can be a fine line. I talk about having the freedom to fail, but really, how can those around me learn if I'm always stepping in to help them? And the more I step in, the more they expect me to step in, and then it ends up again me taking it over. Has this happened to you? That you need boundaries. They are especially hard to create and stick with if you are used to giving until you can't give anymore. If you are always the yes person, it can be tough to say no, but you have to. You must. Taking on the burden of others, it can lead to burnout if you're not careful. And then, in addition to letting others learn their own lessons without us stepping in, we have to get comfortable seeing them struggle. Okay, I know it sounds bad, but I don't mean you sit idly by if your loved one is having a crisis and just really needs you. Or if you have a client who's getting ready to do a project launch and is on the verge of mortgaging their home to make that happen. No, you step in then. But if even at those points, if you've given your best advice, you've told them, I don't think you should do that, or no, that's not the right way, and they still do it anyway, they go against what you said, you have to let it go. You can be there to help them pick themselves back up, but again, not to the detriment of everything that you're working toward. Your ideas need time and space to grow, and by neglecting to set boundaries, you deprive yourself and your future clients of your best work. Think about it. If you overload your schedule with tasks that have nothing to do with your purpose, by the time you're done for the day, you barely have time or energy to brush your teeth, let alone come up with new projects, come up with new services, or really even serve your current clients well. So, what are your next steps? Start with saying no to something small, like refusing to do a 24-hour turnaround for a client project that would normally take you 3 days. Soon you'll be turning down clients who aren't a good fit with ease. But really, start with something that is a little outside your comfort zone, but not so far outside that you're going to chicken out. So, whether it's something personal, like someone inviting you to lunch when you really don't have time, you can say no then. And that might be something to start stretching those no muscles. And as I said, you'll start small and then soon you'll be saying no to things that don't serve you left and right. But be prepared for resistance. Those people who are used to you saying yes, and especially those people who are used to taking advantage of you because they know, oh, she's just going to say yes. Oh, they're going to say yes. I don't even really need to ask them before I even get out the request. They're going to volunteer. Those people, they're not going to like it. You're going to have to get comfortable with not being liked. Now, this might be foreign territory to you because underneath that overgiving is usually a tendency to people please, but it's time to leave that behind too. One thing you may encounter is someone who is going to use guilt on you. Those infamous guilt trips. And it's usually set up like this. If you don't do this thing I want you to do, something bad will happen. Something horrible will go down, and it'll all be your fault. It won't. It won't be your fault. They're just preying on your kindness and hoping that you'll cave. Don't do it. Do not let them succeed. Ignore them and stand firm in your no, even if you feel selfish. Because really, we're trained that way. Like, we're conditioned, especially women. It feels like from birth, we're trained to be the nurturers, the givers, the yes people. You gotta leave that behind. And if the whole concept of saying no feels difficult to you, let's reframe that. Instead of thinking of it as, oh my gosh, I'm being selfish, I'm saying no. Think of it as you saying yes to yourself and yes to your business. You're saying yes to your vision, your goals, your dreams, your mission. You're saying yes to yourself. So, using that example of if you're turning down a last minute request that would take 2 hours, for example, you're saying yes to 2 hours of planning your own content strategy, 2 hours of answering client inquiries, 2 hours of getting into that project that you didn't have time to do before. Another tactic that people may use on you is making you feel like you've changed and not for the better. You may hear phrases like, oh, you don't have time for me now that you're a business owner. Or, oh, so now you're too good to help me? Your new boundaries may even be met with anger. People will actually get angry with you because you don't want to do what they want you to do, but you want to do what you want to do for yourself. They're not going to like it. But do not fall into an unhealthy pattern of seeking their approval, of getting angry yourself, or even rescuing the other person. Stick to your boundaries. And while family members, friends, and clients may not like your new boundaries at first, they'll get used to them. If not, it's time to examine how prominent a role that person should have in your life. As Carla Marie Manley, a California based clinical psychologist and the author of Joy from Fear, says, if you fear losing a relationship due to setting healthy boundaries, trust that anyone who truly loves you will learn to show their love by respecting your boundaries and the reasons why they're important to your well being. Again, if those persons really, really love you, if they care about you, if they respect you, it may be tough at first, but they'll come around. They'll understand. And creating boundaries doesn't just mean saying no. Telling someone no to a request without over explaining yourself is a good start. If you wouldn't explain your reasons for saying yes to a request, why the need to explain your no? Those two letters, N-O, no, comprise a complete sentence. When you don't reinforce your boundaries, you can end up in a standby pattern. Your goals may be getting worked on, but slowly, if you even have goals. Your days may be a mix of money-making work and busy work or distractions. You know what those things are: email checking, social media scrolling, TV watching, etc. Now, then when a family member, coworker, or client gets in touch with a request, it's like you spring into action. You jump off the bench, ready to get in the game. But your purpose is bigger than being on standby for someone else's plans. Your purpose has always been there. I mean, I think of the following two Bible verses. So the first part of Jeremiah 1:5 and then Jeremiah 29:11. So the beginning of Jeremiah 1:5 states, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." I read those verses from the New International Version, and I love them because both of them talk about purpose and plans that had you in mind since before you were even born. How wonderful is that to know that you were thought about, that your purpose was always there, and even more important, that you can't lose it. You may slow down, you may veer off track, you may say yes way more times than you should have, times when you should have said no, but your purpose has always been there and it will still be there. If you mess up, if you feel like you fell off, it is not too late. It is never too late. So get in the game. It starts with saying no. And again, how are you going to have time to make your own plans if you are so busy helping other people with theirs? Now, one thing I've learned is that fear is likely behind that resistance to set boundaries. And it's not just that common fear of failure or sometimes fear of success. No, there are deeper fears than that, like these that I'm going to list now. Fear of being abandoned because you said no. And women especially are conditioned to put others' needs before their own. I mean, again, from birth, we get dolls to play with. Learn how to be a nurturer. Learn how to take care of this baby doll versus some video game you may want to play with. Another, you might have a fear of seeing someone get hurt because you didn't step in and then feeling responsible for it. Sometimes we get this notion that we have to save people and that if we are not the savior and we let something bad happen, and I put that in quotes, we let something bad happen, then it's our fault. But no, if you really take a step back, it's you letting people learn from their own mistakes. Sometimes that's the only way someone can learn. I mean, I know I have some people in my family, some people who've been in my friend group. You could tell them over and over and over again, don't do this, don't do this. Oh, okay, well, you got into debt. Let me give you some money. Oh, you ran out of food. Let me give you some food. And they still find themselves in those same situations. It's not your fault, and you cannot feel responsible, especially if you've done the friend thing, you've extended yourself, and they keep falling down. It's okay. You don't need to have that fear of it being your fault. It's not. You may also have a fear of missing out. And this could be when you think of saying no to networking events or friend events or just things that don't fit into your schedule right now, whether it be an event or a project. You might be at home like, oh my gosh, I wish I went to this thing. It's probably so fun or so great for my business. But if you have an inherent belief that everything is working out for you the way it's supposed to, that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, that one event won't make or break you. You're not missing out. You will be okay. There might also be fear of losing favor with those you love. And sometimes that happens, especially with those family members or friends who are used to you being that yes person, that you will volunteer yourself before they even get the full request out of their mouth. You might feel like, oh my gosh, they're not going to like me anymore, but you have to be comfortable with that. It's okay. And if they truly love you, like they say they do, if they respect you, they care for you, they will come around. You cannot let that fear of losing favor with them derail your business, derail your purpose, derail your goals. There may also be that fear of your business not making enough progress, and then you use other people's work as an excuse not to focus on your own. So this is a little bit like that fear of failure, where you're just so scared that you're going to fail that you get into a paralysis. You do nothing. You do busy work. For example, you may get hung up on overthinking. Like say you're writing a book and you spend 2 days trying to figure out the font for your chapter titles. No. Sometimes we do that with our own projects, and sometimes, again, we use other people's work as an excuse. We kind of put ourselves on the bench of their life, and when something goes on or something goes wrong, they call us up, and we do their work. We step in. Not the way to live, especially when you have your own purpose. And then there's that fear of the unknown. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? We can't predict the future. And sometimes we get so scared of just the unknown consequences that may come up that we don't want to say no. Because, oh my gosh, what if I say no to the wrong thing? That opportunity may never come up. Or what if he does this or she does that or they do this, or any number of things could happen. But we can't let the fear of the unknown derail us. We just can't. Setting healthy boundaries are important, not just for your business, but your life in general. You don't ever want to find yourself in a burnt out position. Believe me, I've been there. I've given so much in the past that I don't want to say give till it hurts, but really that's what happened. I gave until it hurt me, until I was so fatigued, I was so bogged down, I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't do much for myself because all my energy was depleted. And I'm sure you heard the phrase, you're supposed to give from a full cup. You're never supposed to give from an empty cup. Really, we're supposed to give from our overflow. And we have to take that time to fill ourselves back up so that we can help, we can give people what they need or what we feel like would help them best, what they've asked us for, but in a way that doesn't deplete us. So, looking at the fears that I just laid out, are any of them true for you? We're going to explore this a little bit in this challenge that I'm going to leave you with, because I always want to leave you with some action steps. I don't just want you to hear the content and be like, oh, that was good. No, I want you to do something with this. So the challenge for today is a series of questions. Now you can write them down, or you can even hit replay and listen to me ask them and then journal or record them for yourself, record your answers. So the first one, so really, if setting boundaries is difficult for you, we're going to take a step back first and we're going to examine why. Because I like to get to the root of things. Because if you don't get to the root of it and pull it up, the things are still going to keep growing. It's like plants. When you have weeds in your garden, you can't just chop off the top. You have to dig out the roots, or the weeds are just going to keep on popping up. So we're going to think about what the root of your lack of setting boundaries or people pleasing or overgiving comes from. And then we're going to start putting some healthy boundaries in place. So, first, looking at the list of fear responses, again, rewind if you need to hear them again. Which ones are at the root of your difficulty in boundary setting? And be honest with yourself, it may be more than one thing. Again, that question is, looking at the list of fear responses, which ones are at the root of your difficulty in boundary setting? Next, what are ways you can be helpful without sacrificing your own goals? Because I don't want you to start saying no to everything, even things that you want to do, because you're like, oh my gosh, this is too much. Oh my gosh, I don't want to go overboard. No, it's not from you to go from saying yes all the time to saying no all the time. No, it's about those healthy boundaries. So what are ways that you can still be helpful and still feel helpful? Because you can still be a giver, but how can you do that without sacrificing your own goals? And now that you've gotten to the root, hopefully, of some of the ways that your fear responses have gotten in the way of you creating healthy boundaries, and even considered some ways to be helpful to others without sacrificing your own goals, it's time to practice boundary setting. So first, I want you to name 3 boundaries you need to set right now in your business and or personal life. Name 3 boundaries you need to set right now in your business and or personal life. And if you got more than 3 because you've been saying yes left and right when you know you should have been saying no, write more than 3. It's okay. Write as many as you need to start getting in the habit of realizing what that healthy type of boundary is. It could be as simple as not volunteering yourself before someone asks for help, because sometimes we get ahead of things, we jump the gun. It could be as difficult as firing that nightmare client, someone that you do not enjoy working with, but you've kept around either out of loyalty or because you just like their pay. It is also being on a call with someone who is a potential client, and regardless of how gung-ho they are to work with you, realizing this is not a good fit, and having that courage to set the boundary of, no, I am not working with clients who are less than ideal, and telling that person Thank you for your time. Thank you for wanting to work with me, but I'm going to pass you on to someone else or just simply decline. For the last part of the challenge, I want you to practice that resistance to over explaining. Now, that's what I spoke on a little bit earlier, that whole idea of no, and here's why. We have a tendency not for yes. Yes is always, are you coming to this thing? Yes, period. But no, are you coming to this thing? No, I can't because I've got to go do this and I got this and then I got these other things. No, I want you, the next time you tell someone no, to resist over explaining. Remember that no is a complete sentence. Just say, nope, I can't go. And if they press, I mean, if you really want to say a little bit of, oh, I'm overbooked or I'm double booked or I just can't do it. But really, it's just, no, I can't. Maybe I wish I could, but I can't. Or really, it's just no. Of course, you don't have to say it with the extra bit of attitude, but no is a complete sentence. And I have to laugh at myself a little bit there because I'm explaining to you why no is a complete sentence and I'm backtracking a little like, but you could be a little nice, you could do that. No, let me practice what I just told you. The next time someone asks you something, just say no and be done with it. So I'm going to repeat the challenge right now. So here's the full challenge. If setting boundaries is difficult for you, let's take a step back to examine why. Then let's start putting some healthy boundaries in place. 1. Looking at the list of fear responses I mentioned, which ones are at the root of your difficulty in boundary setting? 2. What are ways you can be helpful without sacrificing your own goals? 3. Name 3 boundaries you need to set right now in your business and or personal life. And 4. The next time you tell someone no, resist over explaining. Remember that no is a complete sentence. And before I go, I also want to leave you with a confession. And I use the term confession in more of the biblical way, like you are confessing your plans, you are confessing these good, positive things. Think of it like an affirmation. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Think of it as affirming thoughts. And I point this out because someone was reading my work and they're like, confession, that sounds really negative. And I didn't even think about it. I think because the way I've grown up, I've heard it so different. But when you hear confession from me, I don't mean it in the sense of you're doing something bad and kind of fessing up to a wrongdoing. I mean it as more of an affirming statement. So the confession that goes along with this whole healthy boundary setting is really affirming that you're going to do it. It's, I set healthy boundaries and stick to them. I set healthy boundaries and stick to them. And I hope this has been helpful to you. I really want you to be able to get to your purpose. I want you to live in it and walk in it. And you can't do that if you're always saying yes to things that aren't meant for you to say yes to. If you're over explaining yourself, if you're overthinking, if you're putting your goals on the back burner, or even if you're doing so much for other people, you forgot what your goals even were. I've been there. It's not a fun place to be. And the way to turn it around is really starting with setting those boundaries. And I also want to tell you that I am in the process of editing a book. And what we just talked about is one of the chapters in the book about setting those healthy boundaries. And the book is in the editing process now. It is called Get Unstuck, a 30-day guide to step into your purpose-driven business. And it's set up literally day 1 through 30, and each day will have some content for you. It'll have a challenge and it'll have a confession, and it's really inner work. Though I have it tailored toward entrepreneurs, it's all about that inside stuff, the things that we talk about on this podcast, really. Having that winner's mindset, understanding what you need to do on the inside so your business can flourish on the outside. So I look forward to finishing that up and getting it out into the world for you. If you have questions, if you want a sneak peek, feel free to contact me. My website is inspiredmarketinginc.com. My social media handle is inspiredmedia1, the number 1 on most platforms. Have an amazing rest of your day. Be blessed. This has been Dakiana Jackson with your morning motivation. If you need help marketing your business, or even just a little motivation to keep going, contact me at www.inspiredmarketinginc.com. Until next time, have a blessed day.